Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down the one core idea that makes all of cryptocurrency possible. We're talking about solving a problem that for years, pretty much everyone thought was unsolvable.
So let's just start with a simple question because it gets right to the heart of a huge challenge in our digital world. I mean, with a physical dollar bill, this is a non-issue, right? Once you hand it to someone, it's gone. It's theirs. But in the digital world, where everything is just ones and zeros, what's to stop you from just copying and pasting your digital money? This fundamental flaw, this idea of digital counterfeiting, was the great barrier to entry. For years, it was the main reason a truly secure, independent digital cash system seemed like something straight out of science fiction. And this is what we call double spending. It's a massive threat because, look, if you could send the same $10 to pay for a coffee and then immediately send that exact same $10 to buy a book online, well, you've just created money out of thin air. The moment digital money can be copied, it becomes totally worthless, and trust in the whole system just collapses. And this is exactly why we've always relied on middlemen. Banks, credit card companies, they're the central scorekeepers, the official auditors who keep the record of who owns what. But that centralization, with all its fees, its delays, its single point of failure, that was the very thing early crypto pioneers were trying to get away from.
Okay, so let's get into the really cool part, the elegant solution that finally cracked the code. This was introduced way back in the 2008 Bitcoin white paper by the still mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto.
So the solution wasn't one single magic bullet. It was actually four really clever ideas all working together. First step, every single transaction gets a timestamp, and it's broadcast to the whole network. Think of it like a town crier shouting, "Hey everyone, Alice paid Bob at 2:05 p.m." Next, all these announcements get bundled together into blocks, which are then sealed and chained together in chronological order, creating this permanent, unchangeable story. Third, this entire chain of blocks is copied and given to everyone on the network. There's no single master copy, so nobody can secretly go in and change things. And finally, something called proof of work acts like this massive, super energy-intensive lock on each block, making it practically impossible for anyone to go back and try to rewrite history. But here's the thing, solving that original problem didn't just get rid of all the risk. It just created a new, more complex battlefield. As this whole ecosystem grew, so did the creativity of the people trying to break the rules. The threats just got way more sophisticated. So three main types of attacks really emerged. The most famous one is probably the 51% attack. That's a brute force attempt where someone tries to control the majority of the network's power just to rewrite the ledger. But others are way more subtle. A race attack, for example, is like a digital sprint. An attacker sends a payment to a merchant and, almost at the exact same time, sends the same funds back to themselves, basically betting that their fraudulent transaction gets confirmed first. So how hard is a 51% attack, really? Well, on a major network like Ethereum, this number, almost $100,000, is the cost just to run a single validator. To gain control of 51% of that network, you'd be talking about billions and billions of dollars. It's just prohibitively expensive for anyone to pull off on these big, established blockchains. Okay, so how do you actually protect yourself from all this? Well, the single most important habit is just patience. For those smaller attacks like the race or Finny attacks, the solution is simply to wait for multiple network confirmations before you consider a payment final. It's kind of like the digital version of waiting for a check to clear, and thankfully, most modern wallets help you do this automatically. You see, solving that double spending problem didn't just create digital cash. It was like it opened a floodgate of innovation. Once that secure foundation was in place, the whole crypto ecosystem just exploded into something way more diverse and complex than anyone imagined. So today, thinking of all crypto as just money is a huge misconception. The ecosystem is actually made up of all these different tokens that have wildly different jobs. Transactional coins like Bitcoin, they're now just one piece of a much, much larger and more specialized puzzle. And these tokens play really different roles. Utility tokens like Ether, for example, are basically the fuel that makes their networks run. Governance tokens give you a vote in a project's future. Platform tokens support entire ecosystems of apps. And now we're even seeing security tokens that represent real-world assets, like a piece of a company or a slice of real estate, right on the blockchain. All right, so now that we get the technology and the landscape, let's zoom out to the practical reality of it all. What does all this actually mean for someone who's thinking about getting involved? And this brings us right to the core trade-off at the heart of crypto today. On the one hand, you have this revolutionary promise, right? A financial system with no central points of failure, with faster, cheaper transfers. But on the other hand, you have some very significant real-world risks. extreme price volatility, a surprising amount of centralization in who actually owns and mines crypto, and huge security risks that exist outside the core blockchain itself, like on exchanges or in your personal wallet. And when we say volatility, boy, do we mean it. This chart just gives you a little snapshot of Bitcoin's wild ride. We're talking soaring to around $65,000, then crashing down to nearly $20,000, and then hypothetically roaring back even higher. These kinds of violent swings make it an incredibly risky asset for the average investor.
You know, the current consensus among a lot of financial experts is pretty clear, and this quote really nails it. Crypto is an asset class for speculators, people who can tolerate, and I mean really tolerate, losing their entire investment. It's not a replacement for a stable retirement savings plan.
So, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. While the core technology that prevents double spending is a legitimate, amazing breakthrough, the investment landscape that's been built on top of it is a whole different story. It carries a ton of risk, and it is still very, very much in its wild early days.
And that leaves us with a big question, the one that everyone is still trying to answer. The underlying technology is powerful, for sure, but whether its current form is just a fleeting, speculative mania or the actual foundation of our financial future, well, that remains to be seen.